And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another RotoHackers podcast. I am AJ Herschel, and I am here with It's Jared. And we are the RotoHackers, and JUDAHBUDDHA is not here. Why? He's not here, and we apparently have two different explanations on why. Isn't that right, Jared?
I think that's correct, unless they just somehow it would have to be like some great like cosmic coincidence for us for them to match up, because I think we've heard two different stories on why he's not here. What I've heard is he's in Montana.
Okay.
He had really, his fantasy season had not gotten off to the start that he was hoping. This had really led to some serious soul searching for him.
Oh, goodness.
And he's actually out there at, as I understand it, it's like a grizzly bear rodeo that they.
Are you serious?
In Montana. I am dead serious. like once a generation, like they can only do it like once a generation because of like the high death toll each time.
Oh, goodness.
But it's all this really weird, like grizzly bear, like roping. It's all like calf roping, except you rope the grizzly bear, but then it's probably going to turn around and maul you. And so like it's just this really random thing that you would think they probably couldn't get away with, like for animal rights laws and things like that. And I mean, not to mention the fact that maybe it's just not the smartest idea to participate in it.
Sure.
So that's what I've heard. Now, parts of that could have been misrepresented or exaggerated or something like that. But that's the story I got. Now, what about you?
Wow, that is crazy. Okay, so I got a completely different story.
Okay.
And apparently NFL.com has supposedly released some slides as a presentation to show what happened.
Wow.
Apparently. Yes.
Wow. Oh, well, he's really kind of at least made the big time if NL.com is reporting on him then.
Absolutely. So here's what we got. I'll put it up on screen. Here we go.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh wow. Oh, we talked about this.
My goodness.
We talked about this, right? And we put it out there that he was at least a better option than Mike Tomlin.
Yes, and for Washington at least.
For Washington.
Yes,
for Washington.
NFL reportedly, let's see what they said about this. Known to his fans as JUDAHBUDDHA, the legendary fantasy football podcaster of RotoHackers, has reportedly accepted an offer to be the new head coach of the Washington Redskins. The trend began when longtime RotoHackers listener Thomas H. suggested the hiring in the comments of the RotoHackers podcast on Tuesday, October 8th. Fans and analysts were left stunned around the league, as was JUDAHBUDDHA. The so-called talent prospector has commented, "I'm getting my woodchuck out of retirement." Analysts are still trying to decipher what this cryptic message means. Jared, what on earth? What do you think?
That my initial reaction is I'm just mesmerized by that photo of him there. Like he looks almost as blasted as Adam Gase did in his press conference with the Jets. Not quite. It's not quite up to the Adam Gase, I don't know what planet I'm on level. But he really is just like, oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself into? How am I going to get the most out of Dwayne Haskins? Mm-hmm. It looks just like, how there's like the social media meme where, it says like so-and-so tried to do this and instantly regretted it. Like that looks like the face of instant regret to me.
Absolutely. Well, apparently there's more. I can't believe this. Here we go.
This is crazy.
This is insane. I can't believe this. Oh, here we go. A myriad of somewhat questionable signings have already been reportedly attempted by JUDAHBUDDHA. I'm hearing reportedly a lot.
No, that actually sounds right. That's the first thing that sounded right to me here.
Yeah, it's a campaign for his all-new, all-different Redskins. JUDAHBUDDHA has released a series of posters promoting his attempted signings of multiple free agents. The posters have been created by the RotoHacker AJ Herschel, who now has taken on the role as host of the show. 2 free agent running backs have reportedly been offered contracts as well as a wide receiver. Apparently, a trade has also been offered to Phillip Rivers' backup, as if Washington didn't already have enough quarterbacks. JUDAHBUDDHA has also given his potential signees nicknames.
Okay, yeah, that first and last sentences, I was a little skeptical of all this, but the first and last sentences really are now kind of starting to make me wonder. Yeah.
Yep. Well, here are the posters. You ready to see who he is?
I am ready.
To sign.
Here
we go. Here we go. Number 1, Doug Martin, the muscle hamster.
Oh my goodness. Why, Judah? Why? No. It's never gonna. Doug Martin's never gonna be a thing again.
Number 2, Danny Woodhead, the little woodchuck.
That makes perfect sense. Beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful. Yeah, and it's actually that photo is actually to scale between Danny Woodchuck and the woodchuck.
Absolutely. There you go. Number 3, Ty God Taylor to bring in competition with Dwayne Haskins.
Excellent. Okay, that's a passable move.
Yeah, that would make sense. There. Sterling Shepard, the silver chair.
Did he try to trade for him here?
I think he's offered a trade. Not that I don't think the Giants are going to go for it.
I don't think so either. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Nice.
And finally, Cody Latimer or Slatimore and prior terrible Terrell Pryor. What?
Terrell Pryor. I don't think he's been in the league for like a year or so. I don't know. Maybe he has. Maybe he's somewhere. That makes sense though.
Yeah, this Doug Martin, Danny Woodhead, and Terrell Pryor have all been reportedly offered contracts. Trade offers for Tyrod Taylor, Sterling Shepard, and Cody Latimer have reportedly been offered. Not that I can see any of them actually going through. The transactions are not possible to go through this week, and the Washington Redskins will start the current lineup. Well, that's good, because otherwise all our stardom sit-ins would be completely thrown off.
I think we can probably safely go ahead and call all those sit-ins for the fans. Like, don't start any of those players.
There you go. Exactly.
Yeah. Interesting.
Oh, Dan Snyder could not be reached for comment.
Fascinating.
Jared and the StreamYard Duck were also not available for comment.
That is a great photo of Jared right there. It's clearly, and like I think it's appropriate because just like I think he was being asked for comment immediately after being told all that information, and he just went into like a catatonic state. I also like how I'm wearing the same shirt as I was before.
I didn't even notice that. Oh my goodness. Wow. That is crazy. AJ Herschel, the kid, was too busy making posters to comment on the hiring. And I found this off of the internet, so it has to be true.
Everything on the internet is true. Yeah.
My goodness.
Wow. That's I don't even know where to go from there. That's just crazy. That's just crazy news. I thought the story about the grizzly bear rodeo was kind of crazy, but that actually makes more sense than all of than the Redskins' decisions there. Yeah,
definitely. I'm lost right now. I mean, I guess I can try to get him as a guest next episode if he has time, but
you're just gonna get coach speak though, you know.
Yeah, pretty much.
But it'll be like Judah Buddha coach speak, you know, where it's kind of like you know, our running back. Oh gosh, what's his name? What's his name? But he just gave 110%, much like our linebacker. It's on the tip of my tongue. But they both gave 110%.
Yeah, that's why he's got to give him nicknames. That's why he's got to give him nicknames. That's how he remembers.
Right.
Okay, so okay, we'll move on from that and see if we can get a definite answer. Wow. So fans between the grizzly bear rodeo and hired by the Redskins. I don't know. This is going to be interesting. We'll see what arises, if we see him on the sideline or if he comes back on Tuesday with scars.
He could just be back Tuesday. I feel like both of these situations offer, just sort of these scenarios where like this could be a quick, he could have a quick change of heart on all this.
Yeah. So getting off topic of that, Jared, how were your Thursday spoils? Did you have any people going?
My Thursday spoils were about as good as they could be because, on Tuesday we talked about waiver wire stuff, but of course we went ahead and talked some stuff for this week and we talked about the Thursday game. And so I said that I thought everybody can go back and look at this. Everybody, that I thought the over under for Patriots defense and special teams touchdowns should be
There you
1.5, should be 1.5 because they were getting one minimum, and I felt like they were probably going to get two.
Yeah.
And they got two. I have them in my 17 leagues. I have the Patriots defense in 7.
That's not bad.
And I was only playing against them in 1. So that was, I think, 27 points from your defense. Right off the bat. So that's already, given me a pretty good leg up. And,
that's a good start.
Yeah. And, and we said, don't start your Giants, which if you got Golden Tate, he did have that one, he did end up with one big catch. But Shepard was out, Barkley and Gallman and Ingram were all out.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, the Giants kept it surprisingly close, and like the Patriots offense really wasn't putting up that much until late. And then, Brady and Edelman, ended up having good games. Sony Michel, it was just so right. He had a lot of carries, a lot, yards and stuff, but all the touchdowns got vultured by Tom Brady and Brandon Bolden. So so that's I've only got Sony in a couple of leagues, and I've kind of played him sparingly over the last few weeks, but I don't know. I think Sony may be staying on the bench, or is going to become trade material for me because if he's not going to get the carries inside the 5, then his value is pretty limited.
Very true.
How about you?
I had 2 shares of Edelman, which worked out pretty well for me. I'm hoping I'm not crazy for benching Mike Evans in one league, because that one's full point PPR and I got 20 from Edelman there. And then Michelle gave me 12 in one league. I only own him in one place. So it wasn't all too bad for me, actually. I was pretty happy with that, even though I'm still mad that Brandon Bolden vultured the touchdown for me. I'm going to be a little salty about that for a while, but not too bad. Not too bad.
That's good. Yeah.
Before we get into stardom, sit-ems, and news, we had a question sent in beforehand by Mr. Aaron Bauer. Thanks for your question. He says, "Is it time to drop Stephon Diggs?"
No.
Oh, wow.
Mainly just because, for a couple of reasons. He's still. Unless you're if you're in an 8-team league, then yeah, probably. But if you're in a standard size league, I don't think you can drop him just for if for no other reason. You have to kind of wait through the trade deadline and see what happens. There's talk about New England possibly trading for someone like Diggs or AJ Green or even Beckham, and out of those 3, I would say maybe the most likely would be Diggs, because it's just hard for me to believe that Cleveland's going to give up on OBJ that quick. I feel like they're probably going to give it at least a full season to see what happens.
Right.
The Bengals have said they're not trading AJ Green, which I think is dumb. I think they I think they out of all those teams should they're not winning anything anytime soon. AJ Green's on the north side of 30. It just makes sense for all parties, but if it sounds like they're not, unless they're just playing hardball with negotiations, it doesn't sound like he's going anywhere. But that sounds like a Bengals decision. They held on to Marvin Lewis for far too long. So so that would keep in line. So I don't think you can drop him, because there are going to be some matchups where I think you can play him as a flex or a wide receiver 3 or something. But really for me, it would be just the prospect of him maybe getting traded to a team like the Patriots.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you're going to be kicking yourself. Yeah. What do you think?
It's really hard, because Diggs it's almost like, I don't even know how to say it, because Thielen got 2 touchdowns last game. It finally looks like the Vikings might have a pass offense.
Right.
But at the same token, he still only got 3 receptions last game.
Yeah.
Which scares me. He's only broken over 3 receptions once with 7 receptions. He's had 3 or less every other game. He's only had 1 touchdown, which I know has got to be really frustrating because he's barely putting up any points. But it's still Stephon Diggs. And not only with the prospect of getting traded, what happens if the Viking offense finally clicks later down the line at the end of the year? Yeah. I don't think you can drop him at this point. If he puts up like later, like you said, after trade deadline, if he's still in Minnesota and they're still only using Dalvin Cook and the wide receivers are barely getting anything, yeah, maybe you should go ahead and drop him. I think he might be a good trade person if he has a good week, though. I think if he has a good week, that'd be someone to trade for. Fantasy deadline comes.
Maybe so, yeah. The thing I've just run into this year with trying to trade any receivers is just that there are so many good receivers out there this year, you know. And so I actually did. I didn't draft either Vikings receiver in any of my 17 leagues.
I didn't either. Yep.
Because I looked at what happened like down the stretch with them last year, and they just were not, like, even Thielen last year was not really putting up numbers down the stretch.
Yeah.
And they had talked up going to this, you know, sort of zone blocking run scheme with, you know, just really kind of featuring Dalvin Cook. And that's what they did in the preseason. And so, I avoided them. I actually ended up trading for Diggs and then trading him away. I traded for him because I was trying to get rid of Antonio Brown, and because that was the one league where I drafted Antonio Brown.
Nice.
It was like 2 days before the Thursday night game that started the season, and I'm like, okay, nice. we've made it through the helmet issue, we've made it through the feet issue. You know, I guess he's content now. And then the next morning was when all that, you know, really blew up. So, so I just needed to get rid of him, and Stephon Diggs was the best offer that I could get. But then I was able to turn around and deal him as part of a package for a better, for actually a pretty good deal. So it worked out okay.
Nice. Very nice.
But so, yeah, I avoided that situation. But it's just really tough. There's so many good receivers out there in fantasy. Like, I don't know, you know, what you're going to be able to get for him. So I would say, you know, you're probably going to have to hang on to him and just hope that he gets traded. Now, if he doesn't get traded, then I might think about dropping him, you know, depending on what your other options are. You know, they play, because I mean, yeah, you could hold on to him and, like, you know, play him, maybe gamble on matchups, but it's pretty limited, I think.
Yeah, very true. It's gonna be a close call. And now, getting into the news, this is news that's very, very interesting to me, especially after Thursday night. Brandon Bolden is literally the 6th string running back on New England's roster,
right?
And he's vulturing touchdowns from Sony Michel.
Right.
So how do you think Brandon Bolden affects James White, Rex Burkhead, and most importantly, Sony Michel?
I don't think he really affects James White, or he affects him the least out of all those. I think, you know, White's point total is like 10.5 points every week. You know, it just seems like no matter what happens, James White is going to give you 10.5 points. If you need a flex in there, if you need a super high floor, super low ceiling flex, James White is always your guy. I'm not really sure what it means for Sony Michel and Rex Burkhead going forward. Rex Burkhead stays hurt. Most of the time, you know, he's a guy that if he could stay healthy, I think, you know, Belichick would love him in you know, you know, having a meaningful role. I don't think you can really trust, you know, Rex. So really, I think it just kind of comes down to how he affects Sony. And, you know, right now he's killing Sony's value because he's, you know, vultured touchdown, I think, each of the last 2 weeks. And, you know, and the crazy thing is, like, even Tom Brady, it's not rare for him to vulture a touchdown. They like to use him. They like to use him in that little 1 yard out goal line push. But what was really frustrating Thursday night was they had one where Brady got that second touchdown. it was on the second carry. It was on second down because they let him bull rush it from 4 yards out.
Yeah,
you know?
It's crazy.
And so, Sony Michel's just like hanging out and, in the backfield cheerleading. So, the Patriots, you never know what they're going to do, like running wise. I mean, that's why Belichick's so good is you never know what he's going to throw at you. And so down the stretch last year, they just ran Sony Michel down people's throats.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a chance that could happen again. But I just, I hate, gambling on anything with the Patriots backfield, this year more than ever.
We always joke about never starting Tampa Bay running backs and never trusting Tampa Bay running backs, but New England is so much worse.
Right.
It's so much worse. It's almost like New England's offense is a machine, and then whichever part they need to work for this specific game, they're going to use it, and you don't know what they're going to use. Last year, I was really hoping that we'd finally get into a set schedule because White and Michel were actually working really well together and producing good numbers as like a running back duo with Michel on the ground, White through the air. And then Brandon Bolden comes in and Rex Burkhead's back. And I don't know what to think. I started Sony last night because because they were playing the Giants defense. And I was like, okay, he's got to get at least one touchdown.
Oh, for sure.
And he doesn't.
Right.
And he doesn't. He got involved. He's getting more involved in the pass game. I know that. Yeah. But the fact that he's not, especially if I'm in a standard league and not PPR, the fact that he's not getting touchdowns that often really, really worries me.
Right.
It really worries me.
Yeah.
So I know Judah Buddha was talking about last time that he's picked up Brandon Bolden in a couple leagues. Do you think that's going too far, or do you think he's actually worth snagging as a touchdown-dependent flex?
I would have to kind of let me look through his numbers here while we're talking about it. I mean, I think I guess maybe there's a little bit of encouragement there because they were using him because it wasn't just like a red zone thing. They were actually using him out sort of, in the open field. I think he caught, a couple of passes. In a 10-team league, it's still tough for me to say like, oh yeah, roll the dice on Brandon Bolden. If I think maybe like this week, there were a lot of buys this week. And so if Brandon Bolden had these couple of double-digit point games prior to this week, I might have, rolled him out as a flex or an RB2 or something in a league where I've got, like I have leagues where I have Jacobs, Josh Jacobs and Marlon Mack both on bye. Yeah. So in one league, I'm throwing Jamal Williams in there as my RB2 because he's back. They're playing the Lions, who are like third or fourth worst against the running game. Yep. And typically like they want to try to have it more of an even split between him and Aaron Jones. So but if I'd have known, again, if Brandon Bolden had a couple of those games prior to this week, I might have said, oh, hey, they're playing the Giants. Let me put him in there. So I think in a scenario like that, you can justify doing it, but just on like a regular week in a 10-team league, like that would be hard for me to justify putting him in there. What about you?
Yeah, not yet. I think that maybe if you are really in front in a league, especially in a 12 or 14 team league, and you have someone that you can drop, I think Bolden could be interesting because if he pans out, great. You've got another weapon on your offense. If he doesn't, I mean, no harm, no foul. You're still 4-1, 5-0. So I think if you're a lower ranked, if you're lower in the rankings, losing record, I don't think it's worth it right now, unless you actually have someone who, say, got injured or is ridiculously injury prone, or if for some reason you still have OJ Howard on your team. But other than that, I don't think it's worth it at this point.
Yeah.
And we apparently have a bunch of injury news coming up. First off, oh boy, Mason Rudolph has definitely been ruled out that he's not going to play. I think we all saw this coming.
Yeah.
Steelers, what are you going to do about him? What do you think? How does this affect Juju and everyone else? Juju and the gang.
Yeah, it's not ideal. It's sort of the little dog sitting in the cafe that's burning down meme. This is fine.
Yep.
This is fine.
Yep.
It's not a good situation. They're down to their third string quarterback. They're on the road against the Chargers pass defense, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
Anywhere that I have a chance to sit Juju, I'm sitting Juju this week. I mean, and that goes for all Steelers passing options. Yeah. James Conner, I just really don't have much of a choice. I've got him in 4 leagues. Again, a lot of those leagues are places where I have Marlon Mack and Josh Jacobs, just guys on bye. So no choice really there. But I mean, right. I think the one good thing for Conner is, they probably are going to try to lean on the run. Jalen Samuels is out, so I think he's going to get. I'm sure, obviously they'll, I think, work Benny Snell in, but it's not. I don't expect it to be the same kind of like 50-50 split. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping that they're just going to like try to throw a bunch of little screen passes to James Conner. Maybe he can, just at least hit double-digit points or something, or maybe like, fall into the end zone for a touchdown. But yeah, I would not want to have to play, anyone involved in the Pittsburgh passing game this week. How about you?
It really honestly hurts because I went back and looked back at Juju stats one day. I was like, okay, I know there's been so many problems with the Pittsburgh's offense. What has he actually done?
It's actually not bad.
Right. He's only scored under 10 points once.
Right.
And for that matter, I think under 13. Yeah, he's only scored under 13 points once. He had one bad week with 4, and everything else he scored over 13 points.
And that's probably full PPR, right? Because I think
that's full PPR.
Yeah, because the half points that I play in Yahoo, it's been like 10.5 a couple of times. But yeah.
But still, that's wide receiver 2 possibly.
Right.
Or the flex spot for sure.
Right.
That's like a solid flex spot player.
Yeah.
To which I'm like, everyone has been so scared about him, and he's still been producing other than one game in which, yes, it was probably the game he should have gotten 5 touchdowns against Cincinnati, but still.
Yeah, right.
But they're on their third quarterback.
Yeah.
That's what makes me worried because I don't think they're going to let him throw that much.
Right. And it's the Chargers, Casey Hayward. Yeah.
And the Chargers always play the Steelers tough too. It scares me. It looks like a recipe for disaster to me.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, and I think I've said some of that in some of our past podcasts, where like it's just not as bad as people are making it out to be. Yeah. The biggest worry was not really the points for me as much as like lack of total number of receptions, where it was like 2 games in a row. But he bounced back a little bit last week. I actually feel okay about him. Like if they come back off the bye and Mason Rudolph's back in there, because Rudolph had said, look, we got to make more of an effort to get him the ball. And they did against the Ravens. And their schedule, is not that bad. They get the Dolphins, they get the Colts, which, I mean, the Colts, I don't know which defense is going to show up for the Colts, either a really great one that shut down Kansas City or just a terrible one that was getting carved up by some teams. Yeah. So, but still, they don't really have like a shutdown corner. So, I feel fine about Juju, going forward for the most part. But this week, if you've got another option, I would not start him.
Oof, yeah, this so hurts me so much. Just right here. Cardinals and Christian Kirk is questionable as of right now and is called a true game time decision playing against the Falcons. What do you think? How does this affect Fitzgerald and Kirk? Is he worth a risky start possibly? What do you think?
If he plays, I'm putting him in.
Oh wow.
Atlanta's defense, Atlanta, period. The city of Atlanta, we can just keep like branching out in terms of like how terrible it's all been. So I would play him if he goes. I mean, Will Fuller just destroyed the Falcons last week. It's just been, the Falcons are just like running a buffet line, and you just go through and collect your points. So if he plays, and there again, there's another league where I've got him in as my flex, and I think he's my only. Let's see. Yeah, he's literally my only option because my entire bench is on bye. So
your entire bench?
My entire bench. So on my bench, I've got David Montgomery, Darren Waller, Frank Gore, Josh Jacobs, Tyrell Williams. And then I've got Chase Edmonds, but he's only, an option if David Johnson doesn't play. So what I'll have to do is I'll have to wait until before that game and see, like, okay, is Kirk playing? Because if he is, fine, I've got him in my lineup. If he's not, then is David Johnson playing? Because if he's not, then I can plug Edmonds in. But if he is, then I have to drop Edmonds for someone else playing in the 4:00 game. So but I like Kirk because he's almost kind of like to me, he's almost being kind of like the James White of receivers, where you can really just like sort of count on him for around 10 points, but he's probably not going to get you a touchdown. So I like him as a high floor flex, depending on your matchup. Now, if you're projected to, if you're trailing in your projections and you feel like you need to, throw a Hail Mary, then he's probably not going to he's probably not your guy. He's probably going to break out at some point for, 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, but you don't know when that's going to be. So I like him and I've picked him up where I can. I'll play him this week because if he plays, because the matchup, the Falcons secondary is just so terrible.
Yeah.
What about you?
I hate game time decisions. I'll say that much.
Yeah.
It scares me to no end. And so I like Kirk just like you. I really think he's really going to be good. He's got matchups coming against later down the line, the Giants and Tampa Bay, which I think he could absolutely explode coming up. Yeah. And then if, let's say he does play and we look at the Falcons secondary, they still have Desmond Trufant, who's not a bad corner, and he'll be covering Fitzgerald. Who's got Kirk?
Yeah.
Who's on Kirk? Like literally.
Right. Well, the Falcons have said they're we don't know because the Falcons they've been so bad. They've said, okay, we're going to make some changes, but it's like a very vague, like, so I don't know if they're actually going to make any meaningful change or they're just like, giving lip service, but basically there's no way to know. But, I think you don't really have to know too much. I mean, you just know that the secondary has been terrible. So the opportunity's there if he plays and Andy's healthy and you want to, risk it. So, yeah,
I think that's the only risk though for me is that just the fact he's a game time decision. And then on top of that, he's the 3:05 game. So the majority of the players are going to be playing at 12 o'clock. And unless you've got someone going Sunday night who you'd have possibly in your flex spot or not, it's a little bit of a risk.
Yeah. That one league where I've got him in as my flex, again, if Edmonds, if Johnson's in there and Kirk is not, then I might even have to roll with Bird or the next, the Cardinals receiver. I think it would be Bird that would be kind of, taking on more of that role. So it is a tough spot. If you're choosing between him and somebody in one of the early games, then you're probably better off if they're a good option. You're better off playing it safe on that. But if you have to roll the dice on him, then if he's healthy, I think he could carve up Atlanta. So
absolutely. And this is a little bit of an interesting one, even despite the fact that supposedly Gordon's back. Eckler has still been ridiculously consistent, ridiculously good. But let me read the quote if I can get it. Anthony Lynn said that he wants to see Melvin Gordon's rep count going up. He can see Gordon's rep count going up. As an Austin Eckler owner, this makes me nervous. So what do you think? Is Gordon worth starting? And is Eckler still going to be worth starting?
So last week, I have Gordon and Eckler. I have Gordon in 2 leagues and I have Eckler in 1, in one of those same ones with him. Last week I played Eckler over Gordon. Because I didn't put both of them in my lineup because my other option was Sony Michel against Washington, and that was where Sony Michel actually did have his best game. So I felt good about that. But this week, again, it's going to be a choice for me because I played Sony expecting him to do better against Washington than what he did. But I'm going to go with Gordon over Eckler this week.
Wow.
So they tried, and really last week they did try to kind of go to Gordon. He had the vast majority of the carries. I think Austin Eckler only had like 3 carries. And they really kind of turned to Eckler as the passing down back when they were trailing, if I remember right. So, Gordon, this week they're playing the Steelers. Again, we just talked about Steelers' third string quarterback.
Yep.
I think the Chargers are going to be ahead in this game unless they just completely, blow this and fumble it away. But so I like Gordon. If you have to pick one of the two, this is the week that I'm going to start rolling with Gordon. I think Austin Eckler can still be like, I think he's going to become James White. I think,
interesting.
I think he's still going to, give you sort of a, maybe 10-ish points each week sort of thing. I don't think he's going to be quite that reliable. I think he's probably going to have weeks where he does better and, gets a touchdown and maybe gives you, 14, 15 points. And then I think, you're probably going to have weeks where maybe he gives you 6 or 7. So, so if I had to pick between the two of those, this is, I think, the week where, because of the matchup and because of what Anthony Lynn said and because of how they tried to use him last week, I feel good about, if you have to pick between the two of them, making that transition to Gordon now. What about you?
If I've said it once, I've said it a million times. I always love consistency. And Eckler's the one really consistent thing in the Chargers offense right now, if we're being entirely honest. I don't know what's Rivers is inconsistent. I don't know what's going on with Keenan Allen right now. Eckler's been the one guy who's been consistently getting me 15 points or more. And so it's hard for me to sit that. And it's even harder for me to think, oh, well, we have this guy who's been doing absolutely great, so we'll change it up and throw Gordon back in. Yes, I know he's an incredible running back. I know he's very, very talented and one of the best, NFL's best, when he's at his best as well. But Eckler's so good. So I think that if I don't see a lot of places in my leagues personally where we've got Eckler and Gordon, two people having both of them on the same team.
Interesting. Really okay.
So I think if you don't have Gordon, I'd still start Eckler absolutely as a flex spot incredibly. But if you don't have Eckler and you still have Gordon, I'd play him too. I think they're both stardoms this week. I just don't. I think maybe Gordon's slightly better, possibly. Because I don't know. The Steelers secondary just is in recent weeks has been a little bit scarier than their front seven to me. So I'd probably go Gordon this week over Eckler if you have both, but I'd still start both of them. And that is a great segue into our segment, which is really the reason why we're here on Saturdays, is to tell you our stardom sit-ems. And who should you start and sit this week? Because we know that flex spots are very hard to figure out, and bye weeks happen to everybody. So I have one to start, and then Jared, if you have some, you can feel free to go ahead. But here's my first one. Marquise Brown of the Ravens. It's been really, really underperforming, I think, for me, especially with the number of targets he's gotten over consistent weeks. And I think he's been nowhere near as good as that first week where he absolutely blew up. And everyone's like, he's going to be the main factor in the Ravens offense. And he hasn't really done much since. I think unless you're full point PPR, he's only broken 10 points. He hasn't broken 10 points since week 2, I think.
Right.
I'm sitting him this week. I know they're playing Cincinnati, and I think that if you don't have a good option, you could go ahead and start him as a flex if you're trying to figure it out. But I think this is Ingram's game to absolutely tear apart Cincinnati's defense and just make them look ridiculous. And Marquise Brown's stats aren't exactly making me super excited what do you think, Jared?
Well, yeah, and I think the biggest thing for me is that I got to double check real quick, but I think he's still he's questionable, for this week. I don't think he's going to be a game time decision. So he didn't practice all week. That's not a good sign. He, like you said, he's the thing that was a little more reassuring after that first week was he started getting volume,
right?
Because he only had 5 targets in that first week, and so I'm sitting there thinking, okay, it was Miami. It was Miami, and he had 147 yards and 2 touchdowns on 4 receptions. He's a rookie. And so I didn't really make a huge effort to get him in many leagues. I picked him up in a couple. But then week two, they went 13 targets to him, 86 yards. Like, okay, man, that's pretty good. Week 3, 9 targets, but he only had 2 receptions for 49 yards. And then 7 targets last week, and then 7 targets 2 weeks ago and 5 targets last week. So his targets have been like going back down again. He's only had 22 yards each of the past 2 weeks. So with it being the Bengals, if he was healthy, and I was going to play him, that would be the place to do it. But the fact that he's missed 3 straight games, I guess 3 straight practices. It is at least, I guess, an early game. So if you're desperate and you need him and you don't really have another good option, then you'll at least, I guess, know early on. But but I think if I've got another option, the fact that he's been so banged up, and the fact that just with rookies, you just don't know where they're gonna show up and where they're not. I would sit him if you've got another option.
Yep. So Jared, who do you have as a stardom sit-em this week then? What do you got for us?
Well, I've had to get creative with some of my lineups just because of like stuff like what I just mentioned there with having all those guys on the bench. So I'm playing some guys that I would not have expected to be playing. So so in one league, I am desperate enough to the point where I am going to roll out Adrian Peterson against the Dolphins, which is painful. It's painful, but the Redskins interim coach has lamented the fact that Adrian Peterson has not gotten the ball, or just that they haven't really run the ball enough, and he's about the only guy that they can run the ball with since Geis is out and Thompson's more the passing back. But he's lamented the fact that they haven't been running the ball enough, so they're going to do that more. If Jay Gruden was still there and it was just great Jay Gruden saying that, then I might question that a little bit more. But since it's a different guy, I think there will be a change of philosophy. If you're ever going to use him, Miami is the team to do it against, unless the only possibly better option would be if the Redskins were playing themselves somehow. Again, in a league where David Montgomery's on my bench, Frank Gore's on my bench, Josh Jacobs is on my bench, all those guys are on bye this week. I've got to roll with AP there and just kind of hope for the best.
That's a really I'm going to assume Chris Thompson's gone in this league too, that he's not.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. There you go. So I think if for some reason, I think he's still available in like 37% of leagues or something weird like that. If he's still available on your waiver wire, please pick him up. He's playing one of the worst defenses in the league. But if not, I don't think Peterson's a bad option, especially since if we remember back last year, 2 years ago, he had 8 to 10 good weeks. I think it was, it may have been 2 years ago. I can't remember because I had him on a team and he had some really good, consistent weeks. I was very impressed.
Yep.
And then everyone realized, oh, wait, that's the only thing Washington can do is run the football. And they stopped him for the rest of the season.
Right.
Which was really disappointing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't think it's a bad play this week. I think you're right. This is an interesting one.
Yeah.
Thomas H has returned. Thomas H, before I get to your question, I'd like to let you know that it has been rumored that Judah Buddha is either in Montana chasing down grizzly bears, or he's actually been hired by the Washington Redskins.
Yeah.
And apparently I've gotten word that he claims credit for this. He sent in a comment that says, if this works out in Washington, I claim credit for the idea. So
yeah, go back to the start of our show later, and you can see the full rundown on it. It's a sight to behold.
And here's his question this week: after the Saints shut out Mike Evans, would you sit Chark against them? I like this question. Jared, what do you think?
Yeah, I probably would. DJ. Is it Shark or Chark?
Chark. I think it's Chark, right?
Okay, I think it's Chark. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so Chark. Man, I wish I had picked him up in leagues, but I just was waiting for him to turn back into a pumpkin. He's actually, looks like he's going to be a good season long option. But I think the way that Lattimore has played, not just last week against Mike Evans, but even the week before against Amari Cooper, where he was just shutting him down. So I think this is probably going to be more of a D.D. Westbrook, maybe Chris Conley, Leonard Fournette sort of game. So I think Chark is for real. But I don't, this is one week where I don't like him. It's almost like all of a sudden Lattimore is looking like, sort of like Xavier Rhodes 2.0, where you don't start your guy who's matched up against him. So yeah, I think if you've got another option, you probably go with that.
Yeah. I feel like it's going to be kind of scary because a lot of people are going to look, a lot of part-timers are going to look at the Chark matchup and see New Orleans is third worst against the pass.
Yeah.
Which is true. That's not necessarily the number one wide receivers. So I think you're right. I think Lattimore is going to shut down Chark, and I think that D.D. Westbrook is going to end up being the play this week. Yeah. Thomas H. also sends in one other question: Boyd, Lockett, or Le'Veon in a flex spot? Man, that's a pretty good bench this week. Wow, if that's your flex spot. Incredible.
Yeah, that's pretty good options. Mm-hmm. That's a tough one. So I'm not most inclined to go with Lockett because I haven't checked to see if the Browns cornerbacks are going to be back this week. If so, then that's not the most ideal matchup for him. Boyd, I think you can make a case for Boyd because the Bengals are probably going to be behind and they're probably going to be throwing the ball. On the other hand, like it's really tough for me to pick against Le'Veon. He's I'm assuming a first round pick, if not a high second round pick. Yeah. He's been doing pretty well even without Sam Darnold. The Cowboys just got torched by Aaron Jones last week. Yes. So I think there's a scenario here where Boyd outplays Le'Veon or outscores him, but it would be really hard. It would be really hard for me to justify not putting Le'Veon in that spot.
Yeah. I think with Boyd, it's just like, I know we always joke that Andy Dalton is literally the most mediocre quarterback in the history of the NFL. I remember one time I watched a documentary and they were saying, or not a documentary, I was watching NFL Network, and it was like, all right, here you got the best quarterbacks. You've got Brady, you've got Rodgers, etc. Down here, you have your lower end rookie quarterbacks. And then in the exact middle, you have Andy Dalton, who's literally right in the middle.
Right.
And then Matthew Stafford's like a step above right there because he's actually been to the playoffs. And so I'm just worried that at some point Cincinnati's defense or offense is just going to bomb some week. Yeah. I'm worried that they're just going to have one week where they don't work out at all. And I think this is going to end up being the week that it happens. Lockett is always like the safe play to me because Seahawks offense is so good. So far. It's very impressive. And I mean, their matchup against Cleveland, Cleveland's secondary is banged up. Cleveland's secondary really is banged up, but it's Le'Veon Bell. I mean, he's one of the best running backs in the league. Darnold's probably coming back this week as well.
Yeah.
I think Le'Veon, if Lockett goes off and explodes, I won't be surprised, but Le'Veon, I think, is going to get you the most consistent points this week.
Yeah.
And I was actually just going to bring this question up, but Thomas H., 3 back-to-back questions. Thank you very much. And he's got the next one. Is Will Fuller coming back down to earth this weekend? This is kind of going to segue into a question I got, but Jared, Will Fuller the 5th literally just destroyed anyone who dropped him last week.
Yeah. Yeah, that I didn't have. I drafted Fuller in I don't remember how many leagues, but I drafted him in a good number of leagues as a 8th, round pick type guy, 8th round pick, 9th round pick. And so, I didn't have a lot invested in him. And so when he got off to a slow start, I just mostly, I think, dropped him after those first couple of games. Yeah. Mostly because, again, there have been so many guys that have just been balling out this year that it was hard to really justify, keeping him on the bench when some of these other guys were available. But man, it's really tough to trust Will Fuller. I don't know if that performance last week was the start of him getting back closer to normal,
right?
Or if it was an aberration. Again, it always depends on what your options are, what your other options are, if you want to start him or not. But if I had a comparable option, I would probably hold off and see if he can do it 2 weeks in a row, because he's always been, the Texans offense has really been weird this year, where DeAndre Hopkins just isn't, he had a huge week 1 and not much since then. And Will Fuller hasn't been doing that much until last week. So I don't really know, and yet Deshaun Watson has still been, leading them to, points. But if it's me, I'm probably going to give it another week to see what happens with Will Fuller.
Yeah. It's crazy because literally, I'm just going to say, I think that Will Fuller is probably one of the biggest drops over the last 2 weeks, because in half-point PPR especially, he gone 7-6-7-3.
Yeah.
That was not good. I think it was I had him in a couple leagues, and then he hit 3, and I was like, no, that's probably the last straw.
Right.
And he blows off 46 points the next week. If you started him, I don't know who did, but if you started him, you pretty much won.
Yeah.
He got you over 30 in standard, over 40 and a half point, over 50 in regular PPR. That's ridiculous. But the thing that scares me is he's had 3 touchdowns all year.
Yeah.
All of them were last game against Atlanta's very, very subpar secondary, especially when it comes to guarding wide receiver 2s. And he's played Kansas City, who also doesn't have that great of a pass defense either. I mean, their pass defense isn't great.
Yeah. There's opportunity there for sure. And especially if Mahomes gets back to normal. So it could be a high scoring game, but that's a tough start. If you're in a deeper league, you're probably forced into playing him if he's on your roster. If you're in a 10-team league, then depending on your buys this week, I would be, again, maybe you can use him as a flex if you need to, but I wouldn't count on him being like, oh, well, he's going to come back to earth and score 20 points this week or something.
Right, exactly.
I wouldn't count on that. I would start him. If you're starting him, I would say, expect maybe, 8 points or something. And if you get more than that, then just be grateful.
Yeah, I think he could do well. I think he might get a touchdown against Kansas City simply because Kansas City secondary isn't that good, and I don't see their pass rush really getting to Deshaun Watson that much, even with Houston's horrible offensive line.
Yeah, that's a bad line.
Yeah, I think it'll be one of the better weeks that they have in guarding Deshaun Watson. But when you score 53 points, I think the only place to go up there is down.
Right.
I don't think you can go much higher. but I think he could be a good flex spot option. I think I'm a little bit more confident in him than you are probably, but I like him as a flex spot option this week, especially if you're in a situation like you are and have 5 out of your 6 bench players on bye.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, in a scenario like that, I would for sure be starting him with confidence. Yeah.
And that segues into a question I have of Will Fuller and DeAndre Hopkins, because Fuller has really been, I don't necessarily want to say hawking stuff from Hopkins, because Hopkins hasn't really been performing too well, but both wide receivers have really been hindered by the fact that Houston's pass protection is horrible. It is absolutely horrible. So how do you like either of them going forward?
I always liked DeAndre Hopkins. I've tried to trade for him in a bunch of leagues and not even really buying all that low on him. But he's a guy that in most places or with most owners, they would not be willing to trade him, under any scenario or whatever. But I thought, okay, maybe he's, off to a slow start. Maybe they're willing to do it. Still haven't been able to get him from people. I'm unless he's hurt or something, I'm always in on DeAndre Hopkins. Fuller's more boom or bust. He has put up numbers sort of in past years, really kind of based on like big play touchdowns, and they were just coming regularly enough that he ended up still being a pretty consistent player between sort of his own big play ability and Deshaun Watson's. So yeah, I like Fuller as a, wide receiver 3-4 for you. But really, unless Hopkins got hurt or something, I mean, for me, I would say, rest of season, I can still imagine Hopkins like starting from today on. I could see him being a top 3, top 5 sort of guy. We've got a couple of guys that I think, Chris Godwin, I think he's for real. He's going to be he's going to keep putting up points. I think Cooper Kupp is I mean, his targets are just insane. So you got a couple of guys like that, and then you've got a Julio Jones or guys like that in there. So so I don't know that Hopkins is gonna all of a sudden bounce back and be wide receiver 1 the rest of the way or something like that. But it would really surprise me if this is not just some kind of aberration and he doesn't bounce back to being a top 5 guy. What about you?
Yeah, Hopkins eventually, I just think he's gonna get back to normal for him. It's gonna happen eventually. He's gonna have that one game where he has a great 20-point game and he'll be consistent the rest of the year.
Right.
I think that's what's gonna happen to him. But for Will Fuller, I'd like to take us all back to the year. What year was it? To the year 2012. This is good. I'm going way far back.
Wow.
Will Fuller reminds me a lot of James Jones from the Green Bay Packers. If any of you guys can remember that far back, who literally his strategy was go to the sideline, run 20 yards, and catch a bomb. That was literally it.
Yeah.
One year he had 14 touchdowns and just exploded.
Yeah.
And 2 years later, and 2 out of the next 3 years, he had over 800 yards. And even though he wasn't going to get 100 receptions a year, he still got you a ton of points because he was always there as the deep threat. Will Fuller reminds me so much of him because the pass offense is so prolific with Houston. If they get that, I figure like in the next few years, if they get that offensive line figured out, he's just going to be he's going to be probably an incredible wide receiver. It's going to happen.
Yeah. He's definitely, I think the way I saw someone put it was that he's like the most overqualified wide receiver 2 in the NFL.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
So yeah, I agree with you. And I was just looking to see like, so through 5 weeks of the fantasy season, nearly a third of the way through. So thanks to Will Fuller's performance, he's 9th in scoring among wide receivers. Yeah. So he went from being bottom of the barrel to that massive game,
Oh my goodness.
putting him 9th in scoring. And then And then actually right behind him, 10th is Cortland Sutton. So
really,
yeah. So it's interesting to go look and see, like, like who were the guys, drafted really high. Well,
right.
DeAndre Hopkins, Devontae Adams, OBJ, Tyreek Hill, Michael Thomas, Mike Evans, all these guys. And so then really out of all those guys, you've got Michael Thomas, who's 4th. You've got Keenan Allen 6th, and you've got Julio Jones 8th in points.
Wow.
And all the rest of the top 10 is made up of guys. Amari Cooper's number 2, and he was typically like a 4th roundish pick, 3rd or 4th. But it's just funny to see, like, expectations versus reality here.
Yeah.
It's always that way. But it's funny. You draft, at the start of the season, you draft guys going like, oh yeah, this first round, second round pick, he's going to carry my team, and then it's some guy that you pulled off the waiver wire.
Exactly. Yeah, I still remember the year. Like forever, for all time now, I will always remember Marvin Jones Jr. for helping carry me to the championship win 2 years ago. I will never forget that. Forget that, Marvin.
Right.
Thomas H has another question for us. Hyde, Connor, or Tevin Coleman? Interesting. And since he's not giving us individual, like, which position he needs him at, so I guess rank them probably 1 to 3. So, Jared, what do you think? Hyde, Connor, Coleman? I'm assuming this means this week as well.
Yeah. I would actually say probably Coleman as my number 1. Kansas City's rush defense is terrible. So Hyde, normally I wouldn't really advocate for starting Hyde, but I think if you had to this week, that's actually not a terrible option, but there's complicating factors there. I mean, last week was his first week with double-digit points. He got a touchdown, so he's really just completely touchdown dependent. So that makes it really hard for me to, advocate him over the other two. So I think it's just got to be for me, like, Coleman 1, Connor 2, Hyde 3, because, Coleman, I really wasn't sure exactly what San Francisco was going to do with that backfield, but because they, like, while he was out, they used Jeff Wilson as a goal line back.
Yep.
But it looks like they're going to, involve Coleman in a variety of ways, and use him in the red zone a good bit and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. The Rams haven't been great against running backs, so I would go with him if Pittsburgh had their backup quarterback in there. I would feel better about Connor, but with a third string quarterback and on the road, I don't know really what that's going to be. So for me, it's Coleman 1, Connor 2, Hyde 3. What about you?
Interesting. The thing that scares me with Coleman is because, Matt Breida's still there.
Yeah.
He ripped off an 83-yard touchdown against Cleveland, which was absolutely incredible to watch, because the 49ers could have won that game 45-7 if they wanted to.
Right.
To be honest. But Coleman's still number 1. And despite Breida having that incredible game last week, Coleman still got over 10 points. He still did really well. And James Conner is, oh man, the Steelers. I feel so bad because I like Pittsburgh a lot. I really, really do. But I don't know. It's just the inconsistency that scares me and the injury problems that scare me. And then with Hyde, I feel like has almost the highest, not Coleman, but I'll say between him and Connor, Hyde has the higher floor because he's been like eerily consistent by hitting at least 7 almost every week. He's not really like stardom potential right now, for example, in flex spots, especially if you have someone better. But he hasn't necessarily been bad. He's just been literally okay. I think Connor has a better chance to actually get a touchdown than Hyde, but I feel like Coleman is in actually a functioning offense right now, being as Hyde has no offensive line really, and Connor's on his third quarterback. So I would probably go Coleman, Connor, Hyde. That's probably what I'd say.
Yeah, I think Hyde's just the most touchdown dependent, of all those. Again, Kansas City's rush defense is not not good. It's like it's a real problem for them as a team.
Yeah.
Never mind fantasy purposes, but it's really tough for me to go with a guy who's the most touchdown dependent of all, even if he's got a pretty good chance of getting one. Coleman last week had 97 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah.
So I feel the best about him, just kind of all things considered for this week. But San Francisco just in general, like Kyle Shanahan is a good play caller. We kind of saw some of that in that Monday night game. And I feel actually better about Coleman for the season. I was just avoiding him for the most part because I didn't know how that backfield was going to shake out. But McKinnon went down, and even with a split between Coleman and Breida, it looks like Coleman's going to be a pretty good option rest of the season too. So
yeah, so there you go, Thomas H. There's the answer. There's the answer to your question. Coleman is definitely the number one there. Now, I have a question for you, Jared. I have a wide receiver. I have a league where I got away with highway robbery in the draft, if I'm going to be honest. And I have a pretty solid wide receiver bench right now. And I just noticed Cortland Sutton's still on my waiver wire. So I have my family's computer over here. And should I drop Marquise Brown and pick up Cortland Sutton?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's an easy call for me. I picked up Sutton in 5 or 6 leagues out of my 17 and really wish I'd gotten him in more. But yeah, I talked about him on one of our podcasts where it was just weird to me because like no one, like even a lot of the like sort of mainstream fantasy analysts weren't really saying that much about him, but he was just getting, really consistent numbers, and all that was lacking was touchdowns, and so those were gonna come eventually. And so I definitely always believe in, like chase the targets and be, less concerned if a guy's not getting touchdowns, unless they're a really like smallish receiver who doesn't typically get touchdowns, period. But Sutton's not. He's a 6'2", 6'3" guy, right. And in an offense that doesn't have a whole lot else. So I'm a big Cortland Sutton believer for really probably the rest of the season. And they play, I think their first fantasy, like week 15, first fantasy playoff game is in Kansas City. That's going to be a game where they're going to have to score points. So, I like Cortland Sutton, rest of the season. I think the only game where he's had single digits was Chicago,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, good. That makes me very happy. He probably won't start because I got DeAndre Hopkins and Cooper Kupp, but that makes me happy.
No, don't start him over either.
Let's see. Donovel 1973. This is Mr. Mike from Kinston. Thank you so much for tuning in, repping Kinston, North Carolina. Should I start AP or Dion Lewis? Interesting. Jared, what do you think?
Well, I'm starting AP, so if I win against that, I would be. I don't know what I would be doing, but yeah. So, just looking in on Dion Lewis here a little bit. 2 points, 1 point, or let's see, I'm sorry, 2.8, 1.9, 2.5, 4. Unless there's something going on with Derrick Henry that I'm unaware of, I really don't see any reason to start Dion Lewis, because the thing we talked about a little bit earlier in the show with AP is the Redskins interim coach has said that he didn't think they were running the ball enough. So they want to run the ball more, and they're playing the worst team in football this week. So you've got 2 good reasons to start. I mean, I know AP's performances have been a reason not to start him, but you've got 2 good reasons there in the fact that they're going to run the ball more. It's got to be to him because Geis is out and Thompson's just the guy they use as the passing down back. So that, and the fact that they're playing the Dolphins, like I talked about earlier in the show, I basically, have to start him this week because I've got so many guys that are on bye this week, like Gore, Jacobs, Montgomery. So So I think if you're desperate like me, and it sounds like you are, then I think AP is worth a 1 week gamble here.
Yeah. I agree with you more a little bit also because of the fact because Peterson's actually had a game over 10 points where he actually got a touchdown in week 2 against Dallas. And, that's been about it. Dion Lewis is definitely the secondary back against to Derrick Henry when the Patriots let him go to Tennessee and Henry won the job. He won the starting job. And I don't see Dion Lewis having any kind of a major role really this entire year. I would definitely go Adrian Peterson, especially like you said, he's playing Miami. It's Washington, Miami. Something's got to give eventually. Yeah. So I think AP is definitely the smarter play, especially if the Redskins get into the red zone just once. Adrian Peterson has that chance to score a touchdown.
And you never know too. This is I'm not starting him based on this at all, but you never know. Like Adrian Peterson's just one of those guys that he's going to have a day where he just turns the clock back 10 years and runs for like 140 yards and 2 touchdowns if he has enough volume. So, maybe this is it.
It's going to happen eventually. AP is going to come back eventually. We'll see it sometime. So, Mr. Mike, there you go. Adrian Peterson is your go for this week. Be sure to like and subscribe from this shameless plug because that's exactly how everyone likes to subscribe to things.
That's right. Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in, by the way. Jared, do you have anyone else that you're starting this week or sitting, whichever one?
Sure. So let's see here real quick. I am, for me this week, Carson Wentz is a sit.
Interesting.
I've got him in several leagues, and really like his schedule coming up is pretty rough. He's at Minnesota this week. He's at Dallas next week, which Aaron Rodgers didn't do much against them. It was all on the ground in that Packers game. Then he's at Buffalo. Buffalo's got a solid pass defense. Brady didn't do much against them. They've got a good number 1 corner. Then he's got Chicago at home. Then he's got a bye week, and then he's got New England's defense. So even though I've got Carson Wentz in a lot of leagues, literally for the next 6 weeks, I might play him at Dallas.
Yeah.
But apart from that, I'm gonna be sitting him and actually rolling with Josh Allen. Not just. And again, it's just all matchup based. So Josh Allen comes off the bye. He's got Miami. He's got Philadelphia. He's got Washington, he's got Cleveland, and then he's got Miami again. So 4 out of those 5 are just golden matchups. So I think he's a guy that if you have Carson Wentz, you can't play Josh Allen in place of him this week. So I'm having to go with somebody else like Gardner Minshew or maybe as a 1 week thing, Kirk Cousins, because the Eagles secondary is just pretty forgiving. So I you can't start Allen over him this week, but I'm benching Carson Wentz really for at least probably 5 of the next 6 weeks, and I'm going to try to roll with Allen in some of those because it's just it really is a lot of just matchup based stuff. We like to think that elite players are going to rise up and have this great game against talent brings out the best of them. Look, football's a team game. You've got 22 guys on the field at any one time, plus all the dynamics of coaching and everything else. And if one team or one side of the ball is really good, no matter how good your player is, it's kind of 11 on 1 against them. So, so Wentz is not a start for me, not just this week, but probably 5 of the next 6.
Interesting. I think that you're right. I do think that in some leagues, like I'm in a 14 team league, 12 team league. And it's harder and harder to find quarterbacks. And I mean, Wentz, I think if you have the opportunity to sit him, you can, especially if you have the Josh Allen, etc. But if you're scraping the bottom of the barrel and there's really no one left, I think you're almost forced to still start him.
Yeah, and most all of my like the default for most of my advice is like 10-team leagues because that's what I play. I play the Yahoo Pro, money leagues, and those are all just default 10 teams. If you're in a deeper league, then options are more limited. Maybe you can, if you're in a 12-team league, you can probably still find a guy here and there to stream. But someone like Josh Allen is not going to be sitting on the waiver wire in a deeper league than that. So
Donovel, 1973, Mr. Mike from Kinston is back in a PPR league. Should I look to play Mecole Hardman more throughout the season? Go Georgia Bulldogs, by the way. Jared, what do you think?
Yeah. I think you got to take sort of a wait and see approach with him. I mean, even this week, Sammy Watkins is out. Yeah. Sorry, my voice is going a little bit. Sammy Watkins is out. Tyreek Hill is going to be a game time decision. Mm-hmm. So just with Watkins out, I think Hardman's going to have a role regardless of whether or not Hill is there. Beyond that, I think you really have to kind of start. He's a stash. He's a bench stash, but beyond that, I think you have to kind of wait to see, who's going to be in there for the Chiefs and how things are going to look, because the Chiefs just have a ton of options. I mean, if everybody's healthy, they've got Tyreek Hill, they would have Sammy Watkins, they would have Travis Kelce, they would have multiple good running backs. And then you get to guys like Hardman, Robinson, Pringle. All of a sudden, Byron Pringle blows up last week. Yeah. So I think this week he's a safe play because Watkins is out. And then beyond that, like if they get fully healthy, which I'm not sure if Sammy Watkins ever is, but if they get fully healthy, then I think you really kind of have to just kind of wait and see like what roles they take on, because they have so many options.
Mm-hmm. I think I really can only pretty much echo what you're saying, is that Kansas City has so many mouths to feed. They have a million wide receivers. They've had infinite running backs basically ever since Jamal Charles they got rid of him. And it's just Kansas. I don't know what Andy Reid does. He pulls people. It's like he's pulling people off the street. They get 80 yards and a touchdown every other week. Yeah. It's crazy. I think really the hard part with Kansas City is just finding someone who's consistent. Like, I'm even scared that Shady McCoy eventually is going to dip down too, because Damian Williams is back. So I think Hardman, you're right, is a good play this week. But later down the line, especially when Tyreek Hill comes back, I think it's going to be a lot riskier, because then you're going to have two deep threats with Hardman and Hill. So I don't know if you want to look to play him more throughout the season yet. But if you're looking for someone to play this week, I think he's a really good go.
Yeah.
Thanks for the question, Mr. Mike. Oh, boy. Carson. So Carson Wentz is your last sit-em. So I had someone, if I can actually remember. So I have almost a question and a start-em, sit-em. I just said his name. LaShawn McCoy. What do you do about him? What do you think?
I would go back to him this week. I have no idea what happened last week. I know he lost a fumble, and so I'm not sure if he was getting punished for that or what. But they just, really didn't use him. But that was a weird game, that they just couldn't score against the Colts. If it's me, I would feel okay going back to him this week. And if for some reason it looks like they've just decided randomly, no, we don't want to play him after all, we're going to roll with Williams, then you've got to look at, I guess benching him. But I would treat that probably as sort of an aberration. And if you've got McCoy as your RB2 or flex, especially on a week where a lot of players are on bye and you may need to use him, I would, feel okay about that. But at the same time, you have to just kind of wait and see what this game brings, I guess.
Yeah, it's one of the ones where it's almost like game dependent, almost like this is like the week where you figure out, is this guy, this is the go week. This is, if he's going to turn out, then it's going to turn out. If it's not going to turn out, it's not going to turn out. And that's probably how it's going to be. I am starting him in a league because I'm honestly really hurting, because I've got Sammy Watkins, who's doubtful. I've got Marlon Mack on a bye. I've got Josh Allen on a bye. I don't know what Deontay Johnson's going to do with his third string quarterback. And then I have Ronald Jones. So, and then I've got San Francisco's defense, so I don't want to drop. But
Right.
I also have Carolina's defense because they're playing against Tampa this week. So
Yeah.
that's not a bad play. So I'm literally starting 2 tight ends. I'm starting Kelsey and Will Dissly this week. So I'm
Wow.
really hoping for some tight end plays because I've got to start Shady McCoy this week.
Yeah.
I really need to.
On that note, real quick, I'll say as maybe my last stardom here, I've got to go with Jimmy Graham in one league, and I don't feel terrible about it. The Lions have been pretty good against tight ends, but the Packers are at home. I think they're going to be able to move the ball against the Lions, and so a lot of that may come from running it, but I think that's going to put them in some, goal line, red zone situations. And the big thing is that Devontae Adams is going to be out again. And so the Packers really don't have, in terms of the passing game, another great, red zone goal line passing option because, Valdez-Scantling is more of a, big play, deep threat. Right. Allison is just kind of a guy. So Jimmy Graham is still, like, despite the loss in athleticism, he's still kind of that basketball player where you just, lob the ball into him and, hope that he, comes down with it. So, so I think, I'm trying to remember what what's my tight end situation. Yeah, okay. So so I'm starting him because I've got Darren Waller as my tight end, and he's on bye. So
that's not a bad play.
Yeah, so I think Jimmy's a good play, just because he's going to get some opportunities there with some of those little jump ball, lobs for a touchdown.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with you there. If you've got what's his name? You've got Waller on a bye. I'm trying to think if there's any other tight ends.
Well, Ingram was out.
Oh, right,
and so
out. That's right.
Yeah. So we had some of those situations where, a handful of like regular starting guys just weren't available this week.
And Ebron's out too this week if you have him too.
Yeah.
Not playing. I like Graham. I think you're right, especially since the Lions. I mean, this is the one thing where I always, no matter what, I always go back to looking at games especially with tight ends, how it says, oh, it's this against the pass, this against the run. Especially when it comes to tight ends, I actually want to back check that because a lot of teams don't really have tight ends. And the Lions played the Chargers, and Hunter Henry wasn't there. And then before that, they played the Cardinals, and Max Williams, I guess, is their tight end. But then when they actually played the Eagles, Ertz got 64 yards, but he's been kind of middle of the road so far.
Mm-hmm.
But then Kelsey was the Chiefs' leading receiver against the Lions. So I like Jimmy Graham here. I think that's a good start.
Yeah.
Oh man, Mr. Mike is back. Donovan 1973. Thank you so much for all the questions. Would you start or sit us, my guy Marvin Jones? Would you start or sit Marvin Jones versus the Packers? What do you think, Jared?
I mean, it always, if you can tell us maybe what your other options are, it always kind of depends on what your other options are.
Mm-hmm.
The Packers have been a pretty good pass defense. I know the Cowboys receivers ended up, piling a bunch of like late points on there, but for the game to be in Green Bay, if I've got a better option, I wouldn't start him this week. What about you?
It's almost like, excuse me. It's almost kind of weird because I look at who like the Packers have played so far. They've played the Bears, who I don't know what their pass offense is. They played the Vikings, who hadn't had a pass offense at that time. They played the Broncos, and then they played the Eagles, and that was like the big Eagles game where they finally did something. And then they kind of shut out the Cowboys a little bit. Now the Lions are almost, they're so confusing to me. It's like half the teams in the NFC North make no sense to me. The Lions, Matthew Stafford probably has one of the best arms in the league. And if he was put on a better team, I think they're Super Bowl contenders for sure. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think he's a really underrated quarterback. And I've always liked Marvin Jones. He's been pretty consistent. I think if you're hurting from injuries or bye weeks, I don't think Marvin Jones is a bad flex play. He's a little bit touchdown dependent, especially if it's only half point PPR or just standard. But if it's full point PPR, I don't think he's a bad play. I don't think he's a bad flex play, especially if you're hurting by bye weeks.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I've got really anyone else. I've got one last question for you, Jared, if you don't have any other startums or situms.
I think that's it for me.
All right. Then I've got one more question for you. Devontae Freeman, Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons are somehow are a team this year. They're struggling. And Devontae Freeman, I know, has been giving a lot of people ups and downs. He's like, recent weeks he's been better. Before he hadn't done anything. Do you think the trend of Freeman's better weeks continues, or do you think he drops off in Atlanta?
I feel better about him now. He's I feel solid about him this week because he's playing the Cardinals. I'm starting to feel okay about him overall, I guess. Those first 2 weeks he did nothing, but you got to also consider that it was against Minnesota and it was against Philadelphia. So against Indy, Tennessee, and Houston, he's been in double digits. And, the thing is, his points have gone up every week, 2.6, 7.9, 11, 14, 15.5. So he gets Arizona this week. I think in some ways he's not like a bad trade candidate. If you could get him, if you need a running back for the short term. The trouble for me though is like with me, a lot of my teams are off to a good start, and so I think most of them going to make the playoffs. And in the playoffs, he gets San Francisco, and then Jacksonville, which I'm not really sure what you're going to get with Jacksonville's run defense, but San Francisco up front is just beastly. Yeah, so. I think if you've already got him, I think you can trot him out there most weeks and feel pretty good about it. Mm-hmm. I think if you're looking for a guy, if you're just struggling, if you're 2 and 3 and you need to, make up some ground, you need a running back. I think there's a scenario where trading for him could make sense. But overall, for a season long play and with his playoff matchups being what they are, I don't particularly love him.
Devontae Freeman really scared me the first few weeks because last year I took him. He was he's going third round sometimes, third round last year, and so this
year I think he went. Everywhere I saw him, well, he didn't go second round, but everywhere I saw him, he went third round once or twice, slipped to the fourth round, but he was pretty steady, late third round guy.
Oh yeah, definitely. Because Atlanta, if you think about it, their offense should be incredible. You have Julio, one of the best wide receivers in the league. You have Ridley, one of the best deep threats in the league. Ryan, one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and Freeman, who at his best is a top 10 running back, and they're 1-4.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's really scary because I got flashbacks to last year's Falcons running game, which was basically nothing, and Freeman barely did anything. Mm-hmm. And now he's finally getting back on a consistent thing. So if I think of this week, especially I'm starting him a couple leagues, if he does well, I think that this is really his week where it's going to be consistent from then on, especially. I know the Falcons have tougher matchups later down the line, especially against Seattle coming up. But you've got people like Arizona. The Rams don't exactly have a fearsome rushing defense. They've got Tampa Bay coming up later. Yeah. So I think he'll be a good occasional play. Yeah. But I think he won't be a necessarily every week start him.
Yeah, he's not an every week start for me, but I feel a lot better about him than I did at the start of the year where he had those first 2 matchups and really was almost in a split with Ito Smith,
Right.
So yeah, he's definitely leveled, he's steadied the ship a little bit. And I would love, I wish I had him in more places to start against the Cardinals this week.
Yeah.
I think just sort of rest of season, it's just kind of, you have to take it on a matchup by matchup basis.
Yeah, there we go. And I think that'll pretty much wrap it up for us. I think that'll pretty much do everything. I want to thank Thomas H. and Mr. Mike for coming in from Kinston.
And Ryan.
Yep. Oh, he was here too?
Was it?
I don't know.
Wasn't he? Yeah, he asked. He asked, and then we talked about Judah. Remember, because it was his thing with the Redskins that kind of.
That was Thomas H. That was Thomas H. That was Thomas H. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I'm confusing. Yeah, confusing with Ryan. Yeah.
Yep. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Thanks for all the questions. Thanks. Honestly, I don't even know what else to say there. I'm still doing this whole hosting thing.
That's all right. I guess we can just go with if we have any. Do you have any? I guess kind of final advice.
Final advice. Oh my goodness. Final advice. I guess I will say. I don't know. I guess I'll say this. I think that do not. Here's my thing. Do not. Oh, this is going to be my on. Let me see if I can finish typing this banner up real quick.
Yeah, sorry.
No, you're fine. I just completely did not finish it. Let's go here. This is totally unprofessional of me. I apologize. There we go. Okay. So this is going to be my quick 30-second rant to all the fans out there. Do not always trust the green, red, and yellow matchups, especially in some positions, especially like tight end. Check him yourself. See who the teams have played. Sometimes it's because they've played people who don't have a good running back if it's a better matchup. Sometimes if you're a tight end and it's a middle of the road tight end, make sure the defense has played good tight ends and contained them. That's going to be my one quick 30-second rant that I'm going to give. Make sure for most matchups, back check them. I mean, of course, you'll have your Chicago Bears, you'll have your Philadelphia Eagles defense, etc. But back check the more questionable ones where you're not entirely sure. See what the teams have actually done. That's going to be my 30-second rant. Jared, do you have a 30-second rant for us? I
don't know if I have a really 30-second rant other than, I've got a little prompt for one, so I guess I got to deliver one. I think this is just a week where you really have to pay attention to your matchups, like right up until game time, because you've got a couple of, stud running backs like David Johnson and Todd Gurley who are questionable to go. Gurley's actually doubtful, so it looks like it's going to be Malcolm Brown. But even with David Johnson, they say he's trending towards playing, but that sounds pretty shaky. It could end up being Chase Edmonds. Then you got a bunch of wide receivers, Tyreek Hill, Christian Kirk, Marquise Brown, that are all like true game time decisions. So this seems like maybe the first big week where we've really had a ton of true like game time decisions. So you really have to kind of pay attention to your matchups, and hopefully you're free enough on Sunday in order to, edit your lineup up until the last minute, because you don't want to end up rolling with a guy who's, not going to be playing after all.
I absolutely agree. Anyway, thanks everyone for tuning in today. I'm getting an update here. What is this? Hello? Thomas H. claims credit for JUDAHBUDDHA's hiring.
Oh, my goodness.
My idea, he says. It is to be determined whether the hiring will become beneficial in Washington's front office. Well, we'll hear everything from JUDAHBUDDHA on Tuesday on whether he's been coaching the Redskins or... Well,
you're assuming he's going to be back. You're already assuming he's going to fail. So.
No, well, hey, if it works out, JUDAHBUDDHA, all the best to you. If you're not coaching and you are tackling, what was it? Was it Buffalo?
Grizzly Bears. Yeah.
If you're bringing back Grizzly Bears, I expect to see you in a large fur coat on Tuesday with us. Return safe, please. Please make it back to us. We miss you here. Anyway, for RotoHackers, I'm AJ Herschel. That's Jared. Up there. Up there. Up there is the StreamYard duck. Thank you guys for watching. Mr. Mike, Thomas H., thank you guys for tuning in. And we will see you next time. Be sure to tune in on Tuesday night, 9 o'clock. It is 9 o'clock, yes. 9
o'clock Central.
10 o'clock Eastern. We'll be here every week. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you next time.
Good luck this week.
Yes, good luck this week, unless you're playing us.
Yes.